Welcome to another episode of Becoming a Pharmacy Badass. I am your host, Dr. Lisa Faast, and we are going to be talking about a revenue strategy, which is obviously one of my favorite things to talk about, is new ways for independent pharmacy owners to make money. Now, when I tell you about the topic, you might roll your eyes and say, geez, Lisa, how groundbreaking. But stick with me here. I promise you, this will definitely be worth listening to this. And this is one of the products that I think you absolutely should bring into your pharmacy, because not just the bottom line, yes, we're all about making money, but the impact to your patients, hands down, is going to be amazing with this product. So we are going to be talking about probiotics today. Now, not your typical probiotic. Again, I can hear your groan. Don't do that. Stick with me here. I've got a company that's probably most likely going to be 100% new to you, but they are not new to the space of probiotics. They have over 135,000 patients that are using it. And it is not the typical probiotic that maybe you're thinking of, the probiotic you take with antibiotics or, those kinds of things to help with the GI tract. Now, certainly every probiotic is going to help with the GI tract, but this is a specific probiotic for dermatology conditions. So think of everything from, dry, cracked fingers and palms and hands to skin conditions like different dermatitises, psoriasis, eczema. This probiotic could potentially change your patients' lives. And I'm very excited to be bringing, the company's name is called Skinesa, and we have their CEO, Ryan, and their point of contact for all independent pharmacy owners, Craig, on today. And we're going to be diving into this and talking about the clinical aspects, the business strategic aspects, and how you can see not only some before and afters from some patients, because let me tell you, your mind is going to be blown. Absolutely. But also how you can get your hands on this and be able to start offering it to your patients. So thank you to the entire Skinesa team for joining me. Ryan, as a CEO, you obviously have been driving this, but we've got a lot of pharmacists on. Give me a little bit of the clinical breakdown of Skinesa and how it fits into the world of probiotics, and frankly, how this is like a sexy probiotic. This is not a boring, just take this after an antibiotic kind of thing. Like, this is really going to change people's lives. And so let's dive into a little bit of the clinical side.
Sure. By the way, thank you, Lisa, for having us. We appreciate that. So research-wise, I think that's one of the most critical pieces to any probiotic, right? So we have to have a health benefit really to be a true probiotic. There's a million probiotics out there, and when you look at how we differentiate ourselves, it's by that health factor that we actually can manipulate. So what are we manipulating? When you go back 10 years, we started to look at gut and the skin and like what the correlation between the two were. So the gut skin axis, as you guys probably already all know, is a very well studied sphere of technical knowledge. What we're seeing out there now is that technical knowledge is starting to get applied in the industry. So our specific product was studied for years, literally about 10 years, at the University of Valencia. It started with just an analysis of a handful of people with chronic skin conditions and what was going on in their gut. And could we build something that potentially aided that problem and kind of push them through that cycle to get to clearer skin, reduce flare-ups, reduce the redness, reduce all those challenges that they had in those chronic kind of conditions. So as we went through this process, we went through the GRASS process, as you're probably familiar with, which is generally regarded as safe. We went through worm testing. We went through iterative testing, all the way into getting into the human tests, which, by the way, are now published in JAMA Dermatology, which you're probably all familiar with. And, we would consider that basically like winning the Grammy Award.
Yeah, that's getting an Oscar in the medical.
Right. I mean, that's the first time a probiotic's ever been published in JAMA. That was it. And when you look at it, it's crazy. So our first study that was published, we had about 180 doctors comment, and we had to, give commentary back on, why we did certain things in the study, how the study worked, why was it so effective in the study, which, by the way, was 92% effective in our study, which is monstrous type of result, better than the big guys that you may see on TV. I won't mention any names, but the long and short of that is when you saw that kind of efficacy coming out of a probiotic with no side effects, people turned their heads. We ended up doing a second study, which was even more focused, and it was literally focused on the exact categories that, as I said earlier, the big guys on TV go after. And you can imagine who pays JAMA Dermatology's bills, because that one was found editorially insignificant, which is shocking because it had awesome results. So now think about what that means, right? We had to take that study. JAMA's not going to publish it. We took it over to ACTA Dermatology, which is out in Europe, and they took us in with open arms. And what was really fascinating is we got into the European Union. Some of them looked at our study because of its efficacy and said, this is a drug. If you're going to distribute this in our country, this is a drug. Some of them said, okay, we recognize this as a supplement. It's probiotics. So that brought us into kind of how do we make something that was as close to pharma grade as possible, right? We want the same consistent results. We want the same outcomes clinically. We want to ensure that the patients feel that same kind of success rate that we saw in those studies. So we started looking at third-party co-manufacturers, and that was a big part of our process that really differentiated us. We went through a handful of co-mans until we found somebody that worked with us that could guarantee the efficacy, guarantee the testing, guarantee what we wanted to get as an end result to the customer. So you look at kind of how we test, how we go through our process. All of that stuff makes us unique because we can guarantee the CFU that's in the bottle when it gets on your shelves. And I think that's a big, big factor. There's a couple other pieces that kind of also make us unique. Number one, you don't need a refrigerator. We made sure of that. Number two, when we blended those two probiotic studies, study A that's in JAMA and study B that's in active dermatology, going after two of the biggest chronic skin conditions known to man, we put those two in the same bottle because what we found is the doctor who was out there, who was actually saying, this is what you have, didn't really get that much of an education on those two kind of skin conditions. So there was this big chasm of doctors that said, you might have this, but it could be this, and here's the spectrum of potentials. So in that process, there's a lot of unknowns. So we blend the two pieces together. We throw an extra probiotic on top, and that probiotic specifically was focused on some TLR2 reactions. We won't get into those too specifically, but the long and short, we built a product that really helps manage chronic skin conditions. So very, very unique, very differentiated, not a typical probiotic.
No, absolutely. And I have a long history of working with patients, one of them being my mom. My mom was one of the first chronic psoriasis patients that I started working with, along with one of my other favorite patients, Clark, who was head to toe, 95% covered in psoriatic plaque. I mean, nuts. And I really started diving into that. And that's, gosh, this is 15, 20 years ago when I started to learn about the gut skin axis. And, I started to learn the same skin cells that live in your gut are the same cells that live on the outside of your body. So when you got inflammation in your gut, you get inflammation on your skin. And we all know that chronic disease, and especially dermatologic related diseases, are inflammatory underneath. It's an inflammatory condition. And that's one of the reasons why the big expensive pharma drugs work. But gosh, as a clinical person, I actually cringe at those. I hate where these patients are not only taking thousands of dollars of drugs a month, but they're suppressing their immune system. They're suppressing all of the good things that are happening in the body because this one little area is, overreacting. And
yeah, it's really, I don't mean to cut you off, I apologize, but it's really fascinating because, kind of going back to the doctor side, the doctor, I walk into a doctor and the doctor says, okay, you've got X, here's a steroid. Come back in 2 weeks, let me know how it goes. So that patient walks into the pharmacy and says, hey, I need this filled. They get their steroid, they walk out, they use it for 2 weeks, it works or it doesn't work. Most likely it doesn't. They go back to the doctor, pay another $50 copay. They get another steroid, they go back to the pharmacist. The pharmacist says, well, what are you doing back? I thought the other one worked. Nope. Okay, try this. And this is an iterative cycle. These people are beyond frustrated. I mean, they've experienced this their whole lives. And then we'll call it nuclear bomb of it is, okay, it's time for the immunosuppressant. What do you want? Which one of these flavors? And by the way, what does your insurance cover? So I don't know what a pharmacist makes on those. I hope a lot because they sure
usually next to nothing or negative. So pharmacies don't make money. Pharma definitely does. Okay. Pharmacies do not.
Well, it's shocking what they cost. I assume that you guys make good money on those.
No, we don't. Thousands of dollars. It eats our cash flow. So, I mean, it's terrible for us from a business standpoint, but I just hate it clinically because it just masks the symptoms. It's very similar to like statin for cholesterol. It doesn't fix the underlying problem. It just gets rid of this symptom, which granted, I'm all means, I want patients to get rid of these symptoms, but let's actually fix it. And so that's why I love talking about your angle, because I ended up helping hundreds, if not probably thousands of patients with just combinations of digestive enzymes and probiotics, and to just heal that inflammation in the gut. And guess what? Their skin, got better. And you guys, in terms of getting better, have mind-blowing, like tingle-inducing, goosebump all over before and afters that are just amazing. And in the recording on this, if you're listening to the audio, go over to the video on YouTube. But we will post some of those before and afters, because they are, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's so good. Like it's you've got people who've got various conditions that are just in their worst case scenario, this far to the maximum as you can get. And after taking your guys' product, they are clear. And like you said in your studies, it's like 92% effective. Pharma drugs aren't even that close of like effectiveness. And so it really is mind-blowing from a clinical standpoint.
Yeah, and here's what I was going to say. There's a couple other pieces to this puzzle, I think, for the pharmacist that would be really big to me. Number one, people take it on a monthly basis. So it's something they can continue to take. So you guys can continue to make money. Number two, it can be used adjacent to, one of the bigger drugs. So when they do come in to pick up their prescriptions, you can say, hey, have you heard of this? And you can hand them a box. Or if they have children on it, we now have a children's chewable. This has taken us about 2 years to design. The children's chewable is great flavored, easy to digest, et cetera, et cetera. So kids are really loving it. In fact, we're getting moms now that are contacting us that are saying, hey, my second child doesn't have one of these conditions, but they tasted one of my first child's, tablets. Would it be okay to give them this? It's a pretty decent probiotic. Can I just give it to them anyway? And so there's a cycle from a sales perspective that you guys could look at, where you're giving them something super healthy. It works on their skin, works on their gut. There's a real positive benefit here that you guys could elicit as the pharmacist and as kind of that trusted advisor. I think, Greg, it looks like you might want to chime in on something.
No, and I think instead of me just being a bobblehead this whole time, this is where the rubber meets the road for me. When I obtained the exclusive rights for Skinesa, exclusively for independent pharmacy, it was because of the patient outcomes and the profitability opportunity for the pharmacy. And you could just really stop right there. We've spent enough time around independent pharmacy to know that if it's not good for the patient, then it does not deserve a place within the hallowed walls of an independent pharmacy.
I'm shocked you guys don't make bigger money on those big time drugs. That's the first time I ever heard.
If you only knew.
A typical person thinks, because hey, if I'm, if the pharmacy's getting paid $1,000, they must be getting 10 to 20% profit. No, it is. We're actually, for most brand name expensive drugs, pharmacies lose money. Just
let's not digress and talk about that, because everybody in the audience knows what's happening, and it's actually horrific, and that's why we also.
That's a shame.
Independent pharmacy. It is. I mean,
I can't talk to the pharmacy channel like Craig can about, dollars and all that. I leave that to Craig. But what I can tell you, going back kind of a step, is that once somebody starts to take Skinesa, they continue. And it's, that's the positive, is you have this person who's in your pharmacy, they're buying it every month. It's
and it just becomes that maintenance program. And just to put some numbers with it, if you're a pharmacy and you want to dip your toe in, if you have 50 patients out of your population, on Skinesa, you're looking at over $30,000 annually to your bottom line profits. When you make this a program within your pharmacy, and you really look at what you're dispensing, and it becomes an and or an or to what you're dispensing, and you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 patients on the product, which is not a stretch. When we've looked at all the data, you're looking at over $120,000 in additional profits just from Skinesa, and that does not include the children's chewables. Okay, so that's.
And I'm gonna interject for 1 second there too. One thing that we love about the independent pharmacy idea is that the distribution channel is huge. You guys are all over the place. We have 3 distribution centers. So when somebody buys it online, it takes 3 days to get to them, 2 days to get to them. These people can't get it right off the shelf. So to us, you guys have a massive benefit. We'd love to be pushing business at some point to you and just distribute through there. We just have to figure out, how do we do that? How do we get this product closer to the consumer so that they can grab it off of a retail shelf, come into your store, and who knows what else they buy, but they're there. That's the key piece. They get it immediately. When the itching starts, they need to use it. They start. So I think there's another clinical piece I'll kind of talk to a little bit that kind of made me think about this. We have two types of buyers, and you guys probably ought to know this. We have what we call the Band-Aids, and the other kind we call the believers. So the Band-Aids come in when they have their flaring and they are itching and they're whatever else. They come in, they say, I need something, please help me. And that's usually when you're probably giving them like hydrocodone or who knows what, maybe even Benadryl, something to try to get that itching down and to try to kind of soothe that allergic reaction. So this is something you could give them to kind of augment that, to get them started. It's going to take them a while to see results. I mean, probiotics don't happen, they don't work overnight. So you need to get them on it a minimum of 60 days. There's 2 bottles in the box. So there's 2 30-day sample or 2 30-day bottles in the box. So you'll have 60 days to get them on there. They should be seeing results at that point. And then once you've got them going in that path, the key is to keep them on that and, keep persistently using this product so that that flaring stays down, that itching stays down. Those are the key things. So those guys go from buying it as what we call the Band-Aid, the initial purchase, to what they become as a believer. I don't want to ever stop using this because, wow, it stopped what I had and I feel pretty good. I can't talk to anything else because we'd only have anecdotal evidence of this. We do not have any medical evidence. So I will allude to something, but I'm not going to ever claim that I said it. The geriatric population has another benefit. Watch what happens on TV with the big pharma drugs that you see. And all of them started with those chronic skin conditions and all are now into the pain space. And we are seeing a very similar reaction with Skinesa on the geriatric population. So
I'm actually not surprised because, again, it all goes back to inflammation, and inflammation starts in the gut. So if you heal that, there's a lot of downward dominoes after that that tend to change. And, for listeners of this, know that I'm always talking about making comprehensive programs. And a lot of people are doing, weight loss consultations or fertility consultations. You could also do that with dermatology. It's more than just even giving a probiotic, but completely taking care of that patient. So you can pair the Skinesa with like ALCAT testing to figure out their food sensitivity. You can pair it with digestive enzymes that also help make sure that their food is fully digested, because so many people are on stomach medications, acid reducers, where the food isn't being completely fully digested, which causes a lot of inflammation in the gut. And so there's lots of things that pharmacies could also pair this with as part of a consultative practice or a consultative option. So many pharmacies are trying to break into, quote unquote, clinical services. And there's lots of things that patients will pay cash for if you help them solve their problem. And so I think this fits perfectly into a lot of those other clinical options where the pharmacy really becomes the solution center to the problem. And they're not just selling a product. Yes, the product is a part of the solution, but they're really presenting really taking care of that patient in a 360-degree view. So I think it fits really well with lots of other things that we're talking about and getting independent pharmacies to do. So, Craig, you're the point of contact for anybody who wants to get the probiotic and be able to stock it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, just reach out to me at craigpresser@gmail.com. That's Craig, CRAIG, Presser, PRESSER @gmail.com. Email me, give me a time, we can get on the phone. My cell phone number is 561-400-3811. Give me a call. If I don't pick up, I'll get back to you as quickly as possible.
We'll put all that contact
we'll see what
information
makes sense, and we'll make sure we go over minimum order quantities. I think what's really important is you're not on your own here. We already have all of the marketing materials for the pharmacy in place. Everything from a poster for your drive-through to bag stuffers to one sheets, to trainings if need be for your techs and for your cashiers, to identify who would be a qualified patient, for this particular program. What's great about this is you can eyeball who really has the problem. Even if you don't see it, somebody's coming in with a long sleeve shirt or maybe a little itchy, scratchy when they come through the drive-through or when they step into the pharmacy. And you also know who's suffering from this by what you're prescribing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where I would tell pharmacies to start is look at what they're dispensing. I'm also big, so any of our Pharmacy Badass University members, and especially our unlimited members who get the Pharmacy Growth Hub, where we can do the digital marketing for you, but, text messages out to patients that are on certain medications to let them know that you're stocking a new product and the benefits that it has. But also I always recommend, yes, it's nice to target patients, but also to go broad, because you might get the patients that, the women that might have some inflammatory conditions on their skin, but they're not necessarily taking anything for it. They may not know that, really what it is. They're just, cover it with makeup. You might get those people that have the cracked fingers and just think it's a normal, every day, every year in winter, this just happens kind of thing. So start out with the targeted communications, but certainly, we're all about bag stuffers here, but, then you broaden it up to everybody, because you never know what somebody might be suffering from that they're not on a prescription for or whatnot. But yeah, definitely start with those targeted. Here's, the injectables, the orals, all of the autoimmune stuff. Start there first, and then move on. So,
and Lisa, what's also nice, we also have a counterpoint of purchase kind of display right there. So again, it just kind of evokes conversation, and the product just tends to come in and fly right out to the people that can really use it.
So what is the price point for the probiotic? Let's go dive into a little bit.
So for a 30-day supply on a whack, it's as low as $25, right? We sell it in a 60-day supply. And then your markup from there is the suggested retail price is $99. Again, that's for a 60-day supply, about $1.18 per day. The difference is when people see the results, spending $1 plus a day becomes insignificant. This is a game changer. This is a life changer for them in so many ways. As Ryan said, having the e-commerce side of this and the thousands and tens and hundreds and millions of data points that they have, we're able to kind of pinpoint pretty close who that consumer is. He talked about it earlier. Who comes on, who cures their ailment, and then just uses it as a maintenance program, if you will. So we'll move on and talk about that in maybe some later podcasts or when we're on the phone one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, $50 a month, it's not nothing, but also, I mean, a lot of patients pay $45, $50, $60 for the brand name copays, or even pre-deductible, types of things where they're paying hundreds, if not thousands. So it's definitely not out of the question of what these patients are willing to pay for. So, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more about it, we will post their website below with links to the before and afters and all the clinical stuff. The company's name is Skinesa. That's Skinesa, Skinesa. And your point of contact for all ordering is with Craig. So we will definitely post Craig's information so you can contact him. But I really think the dermatology patient is a ripe market that they're craving something that fixes their problem and not just covers it up or, have to be on an autoimmune drug for the rest of their life. I think a lot of these patients really, really crave a deep-rooted fixing of their issue. And that's why I love this product. Again, I've had dermatology, both family members and patients at heart, and I know how just having these skin conditions can completely just break their life experiences. It makes them to where they're not able to participate in life, and all of a sudden you fix their skin condition, and now they can do things that they can't do before. So it's definitely a very clinically rewarding area as well. So Ryan, any last words?
No, I appreciate it, Lisa. Thank you for having us on. Craig, is your point of contact, so we're happy to work through Craig. He's a wealth of knowledge. It's been a pleasure to work with him. So you're in good hands, and look forward to talking to you guys.
Yes, I look forward to hearing all the stories. I want to create our own little bowl of before and afters with all of our pharmacy patients, because that's what I'm looking for, you guys. So thank you so much, guys. Thanks for bringing this product to independent pharmacies, because, you know, we are the clinical, as you said, we're the clinical point of in a lot of communities where, you know, we have the access to a lot of patients that otherwise maybe not have access to these kind of professional products. So I really appreciate that, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.